know when I'll turn it up.
Hello and welcome to Unabashedly Resolute live podcast coming to you at Jay's Place, downtown Nicholasville, Kentucky. This is what we call a no logical fallacy zone. This is a check your presuppositions at the door zone. We need to open our hearts and open our minds and let's reason together. Today we have a very special podcast. This is the first inaugural live podcast here at Jay's Place. And we're going to be talking about a topic that is extremely taboo in today's culture in America. God and politics. A lot of people think God and politics are like oil and water, much like faith and science. But they are actually one, they actually are very cohesive in their nature. And we need both of those in our lives to understand who we are and what we believe. So why are we talking about God and politics? Why are we discussing this in a live podcast? Why am I getting out of here, out of my house, out into the public to do this? Because it's important. So let me introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. My name is Wes Mullins. I am the host of Unabashedly Resolute. I am a father. I am a husband. I am an author. I am an apologist. And most of all, I am a follower of Christ. Today we also have with us co-hosting my good friend, John Fox.
Hey, what's up, guys? John Fox. I live in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm married. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. I'm not an apologist. I'm not an author. I'm actually a business owner. I've got a small business in Lexington, and really the reason that Wes brought me on is just because I'm equally passionate about discovering truth and talking about the difficult topics in our day and age. And I will go ahead and say, just for the record, I'm not a political guru from any sense, and Wes is. More so, and so I'm going to leave a lot of the complicated stuff up to him, and I'll just ask some questions to kind of facilitate the conversation. But I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really glad that Wes invited me on.
All right, thanks, John. At this time, we'd like to introduce the manager of this wonderful establishment, Brandon, and it's Brandon Spencer, correct? Brandon, come on over, and we're going to talk with you for a few minutes about Jay's Place, what their mission is, and kind of what your mission is in life. So, welcome, Brandon.
Thank you.
So, what is Jay's Place, and what is the mission of Jay's Place?
Sure. Jay's Place is a missional coffee house founded for a specific purpose of being an anchor within Jessamine County, but also being someone that could reach out to the drug population as it's growing within the town. The original vision was, at the start, was looking at what are some of the problems that we're facing in the county, and the prison or jail population was growing, and as we thought, what can we do? Well, we could build a bigger jail, or we could try and reach the people that actually need reached. And so Gwen Riley, who's the owner, founded this place through a number of circumstances that were providential, and God kind of laid those out for her as she purchased the business and began it as a place for us to be where we could generate revenue, but also pour it back into the city through Revive Ministries, with whom we're a close partner, but also as a method of just being here in the town.
So proceeds go from here to these other programs to help people in the drug environments.
That's correct. That the goal is to make a bunch of money so we can give it away through Revive or through other organizations that are working with those around town.
Well, that's fantastic. I love that. So a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I have been here since this past October. Came down from Lexington, where I currently live, but have been a part of the restaurant industry for some time, and then have just stepped into this role as a chance to be a part of Nicholasville and Jessamine County, where I'm from, and kind of return down here a little bit and be a part of this and help out a town that I've loved and have been a part of for a number of years.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. We'll hear from you in the next coming months, I'm sure. Brandon, thanks so much, buddy.
Appreciate it, Wes. Thank you.
All right. So we we have the question of what are we here? What's the why behind God and politics? What's the why behind Unabashedly Resolute? And what's the deal with the name Unabashedly Resolute? Why is that?
It's a very good question.
Yes. Because it seems, I don't know, it seems a little wordy, a little big for its britches. But I chose Unabashedly Resolute because things. You don't talk about God and you don't talk about politics. And the reason you don't do this is because it causes strife. Well, the fruit of this and the fruition of this, of what I've seen, is that we have lost the art of being able to talk about hard things and important things in life, and we keep everything on a shallow level. We keep everything on a level that is simply non-cerebral. It's all surface. It's all pleasantries and platitudes, and it's nothing real. And what I've learned is I could know somebody my entire life and never actually know who they are because they never talk about the two things that are most important, God and politics. You see, when we talk about God, what we understand is we learn who we are through God and how we relate to God, how we relate to our environment, who we are, why are we here? Those questions get answered in the God question. If the political question is, how do I use that information to relate to others around me, and what kind of to help this overarching theme of creating an environment for life and civilization to prosper. So those two questions are very, very important in the fundamental cornerstone of who we are as people, and then who we are in society. So when I think about that, I started going, well, I don't want to be silent. And I read a book by J.P. Moreland. It was called Loving God with All Your Mind. And he said one of the reasons why the whole faith and science dichotomy, where faith and science are like oil and water, the whole reason that came about was because of Scopes monkey trial back in the late 1800s, where science kind of defeated scientists and atheists defeated Christians, and Christians went into hiding for the next 100 years, and they stopped talking, and they got out of academics, and they got out of everything, and they said, well, we'll just take faith, you can have everything else. And the fruit of that is that we have walked out of culture. We have disengaged from culture, and we said, we will be this little subculture over here, but we will not engage in mainstream culture. And I've seen that. And what I started doing was I started saying, hey, I don't have to have all the answers, but I need to stand up. And I need to be unabashed in the way I stand up. I need to present God. I need to present my views with humility and grace, but I need to do it without being apologetic, without being fearful, losing the fear of man. So that is why Unabashedly Resolute is such named.
I think it's really good, Wes. And, I've always found that when it comes to topics that involve God and political issues, there's this natural emotion that arises in people, and people get crazy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it can get crazy, and what I found is that you kind of have two extremes. One extreme is that people would rather be comfortable and not talk about it. I'm married, my wife is actually here live, and we have disagreements sometimes. Go figure. I know that we're probably...
You disagree with your wife?
We disagree sometimes.
Wow. Your marriage must be... No,
yeah, I know. It's pretty hard. But we a lot of times it's so much easier to just forget the issue and not talk about it and be somewhat comfortable than to actually talk about it, have some emotional content there, and get through it and actually learn more about each other.
Amen.
That's the one extreme, is that you just don't talk about it so you can stay comfortable. The other extreme really is that you love to win so much that you study and you study and you study, not for the sake of knowing truth, but for the sake of proving the other person wrong. And so both extremes are emotional, and both are honestly uncomfortable, but there is a healthy balance where we can say we can actually discuss these things in a real way, and be okay with it, and actually both have the heart to get to the bottom of the issue and to understand truth rather than to win something or to just skirt the issue. And I think that, like if you're familiar with any of the biblical stories, there's a story of Jacob. And what's interesting about him, and this is something I recently learned from our pastor, and he was talking about how the actual name Jacob, what it means is heel grabber. So he was a twin. He came out second, and they named him heel grabber. I mean, think if that was your name. I mean, how embarrassing, right? And then you see that he went his whole life chasing after his brother, and this was his identity, was chasing after his brother. He could never do anything right. And then he actually got to a place where he ended up stealing the inheritance of his brother. And you find this time after he goes through this process where he wrestles with God. He wrestles with who God is and who his identity is. And after going through that process, he eventually finds freedom in who he is. And God actually gives him a new name. He changes his name to Israel. And I just think that it's interesting that in the wrestling is where we actually find freedom. It's the opportunity to actually dive in and chase the difficult things that are in life. Yeah, that allow us to ultimately find freedom in life. Because that's what the truth does, is ultimately set us free.
Wow. Fantastic explanation. Yeah, that is something that I was very blessed as a young man, that my dad, very, very smart man, that he would challenge me, and we would go to church, and he would say, don't just take what the preacher says on face value. Get the Bible out. Study it. Get other books out. Go study it and find out if he's telling the truth. Because if he's not telling the truth, then you're believing a lie, and if you're too lazy to get out and understand it, then you deserve whatever comes your way. But he would say that if you can prove yourself wrong, then you're wrong. But if you can try every way you can to prove yourself wrong, but you don't find that you're wrong, it could be a possibility that you might be right. And he said, so everything needs to be wrestled out. And I took that philosophy in my life, and there is not a worldview, there is not a topic that I have not put on the altar and said, does this live or does this die? I've taken God and put him on the altar. I went down the road of atheism. I went down the road of Hinduism and Buddhism. I went down all these roads searching for truth and laid everything on the altar and says, does it live or does it die? Because I don't have time to believe something false simply because it's comfortable or simply because I want to win an argument. And, William Lane Craig always says, if those of you who don't know, William Lane Craig is one of the foremost authorities on apologetics. He's out of Bible University. The man his intellect is amazing. I'm glad he's on our side. But he always says, we're not here to win arguments. We're here to win people. Because that's what this is about. This is about relationship. This is about understanding how we interact with each other. And we want to encourage, what we want to do at Unabashedly Resolute is we want to encourage you to seek truth. We don't know everything. Even though that we're studied and we're learned, we don't know everything. We make a lot of mistakes. We use logical fallacies like everybody else does. We mess up a lot. And if you can catch us in something that we've screwed up on, fantastic. We encourage you, send us an email, send us something and say, hey, I don't think you're right about this. Challenge us. At least we know you're doing some work. And both of us can learn from this. But if you just listen and go, he's crazy, or yeah, he's right, but you don't ever take the time to intellectually work your legs and get in there and get dirty and pull up your sleeves and actually get in there and say, do I understand what I say I believe? Why do I believe it? And can I defend it? If you can't do that, and you can't allow people to ask you hard questions and understand these things, then basically you are just a lemming and you're going after an emotional truth rather than seeking an objective truth. And an emotional truth is not something that anyone can attain. Emotional truth that resonates with me. Oh, I feel that makes me feel good. But those things are not truth. Truth is something that is transcendent and objective from us ourselves. And lastly, we want to encourage people to use correct language. Now, this is something that most people may not actually think about or understand. But what we say, how we say it, and what we've actually said are all three different things. And they all have to line up. If they don't line up, then we are promoting ourselves with a false premise, or we're promoting something that is completely false. I'll give you an example. there's a guy who studies bioethics, and he debates a lot of people on bioethics, and basically that means he debates the abortion issue. He goes, I don't ever tell anybody what I do or why I do it, because the minute I say something, they're going to have their opinion, they're going to throw it in my face. He says, so I don't do that. But one day he was out in a playground with this little girl, and a lady walked up to him and said, oh, hi, how you doing there? Nice pleasantries, and says, what do you do for a living? And he says, well, I study and debate bioethics issues. She goes, oh, you debate abortion. He says, yeah, you're right, I do. I debate abortion issues. And she said, I think it's wrong, but it's not my place to tell somebody that it's wrong and force my beliefs on them. And he goes, I stopped her and said, let me tell you what you just told me. You just told me that abortion is murder, but it's not my place to tell somebody not to murder their child. And she said, oh, that is what I said. That's not what I mean. So we have to learn that our meaning and our intent and what we say and the words we use all have to make sense. Because if they don't, we're going to be presenting ideas that actually don't make sense and that are contradictory and are full of logical fallacies. But what does that take? That takes discipline. And we have to be willing to be disciplined if we want to make a change in the world. If we want to be effective in the world, we have to speak truth, and we have to speak truth effectively.
I think that's really good. One thing that Ravi Zacharias said the other night was, he said that you can seek truth and you will find truth and comfort, but you can seek comfort and you will find neither. And I think that's a really good kind of way of wrapping that up. I kind of want to transition a little bit into the topic that we're going to be discussing tonight. The reality is that all of us come from different places in life. We have different family backgrounds. We have different experiences. And, if you think about it, everything that you believe is all based upon the influences that have been in your life. You don't just start believing something one day for no reason or out of nothing. It's all because of your past. And so I think it's really critical that we keep in mind that all of us have different backgrounds. So when we discuss issues like this, we have to take a humble approach, knowing that everyone else isn't the devil. The other people who disagree with us are not evil nature. They're not wanting to just prove us wrong necessarily, but they have a background that has caused them to believe certain ways. And so we need to adopt a humble approach and attitude as we navigate through some of these things. And honestly, this is a kind of a foundation for all podcasts moving forward. This is our heart. Everything we've said tonight is our heart for any topic that we would ever discuss, not just tonight's topic. But speaking of tonight's topic, in lieu of the current political campaigns going on, I don't know if anybody actually knew that was happening, but there are debates. The presidential campaign is happening, and
there are no commercials on TV discussing this at all.
In November, there will be a major change in our country, and coming up, I think starting this Tuesday, and then moving forward from there, your votes, your opinions are going to be impacting our country in a very major way, and so we thought that in lieu of the campaign and the things going on in the world right now, that we want to discuss something that is a really foundational topic to what we believe, what our stances are in general, and it's these two terms, conservative and liberal. And they're terms that every one of us have heard. Most of us have actually used. Many of us would use to even describe ourselves. But I wonder how many people actually know what they mean. How many people know what the implications of those two words actually are? And so that's why we want to spend a little bit of time this evening sifting through those topics, those ideas, those words, and just having some healthy debate. I don't know if Wes and I will necessarily be debating, but just sifting
we might
through
disagree on something.
Yeah, we might. And but just sifting through some of the questions that are around those two ideas. And so what we want to do, we've got two halves. This first half is going to be about 45 minutes or so. We'll take a 5-minute break. Then we'll have a second half. This first half, we just really want to kind of define some terms and kind of, from a neutral perspective, give you an idea of what they actually mean, how they're defined, how other people who represent those perspectives would even define it. In the second half, we'll dive a little bit more into what we personally believe. Do we think that there's a biblical perspective to be had, and so forth?
Absolutely. And you can go to our website, www.goodwarfarecommunications.com, and find out how to contact us on Skype. We actually have a telephone number you can call from mobile phone and contact us on Skype if you have a question. But I'd like to throw this out there. I wonder how many of the listeners out there actually know what form of government we have in the United States of America. What is our government form? And my wife do not answer because I rail on this all the time. So if she didn't know, that would be very bad. But so why is the political arena, why is it so convoluted? Why do we have these issues where people are, especially in the 21st century, why are we at odds with each other? Where it's nearly getting to fisticuffs when someone disagrees with you. Well, we have this thing, and we have a fractured thinking in America from the 21st century, and this is brought on by an information overload. An information overload. We are saturated with information in the 21st century. You can get information anywhere. Anywhere you want to get information, you can get information. You're getting someone's opinion. Now, why is this bad? Because we only get sound bites. We only get 30-second clips of this. We only get talking points that are built around other presuppositions. And a presupposition is different meanings behind, it's a different premises or different statements of belief behind a certain statement. So we have a statement and all these presuppositions, like Republicans are uncaring about the poor. That is a talking point that is riddled with presuppositions that the Republicans are not compassionate people. Now, that is an incorrect assessment, but that is a talking point. Now, I can't combat with that and say, well, Democrats are this. I can't come back with that. We can't just talk in talking points. So the information overload is really causing us to be fractured because we don't have enough time to have roots that go deep into whatever we're discussing. I have to hear a soundbite for 10 seconds, and I have to make a judgment on it, and then I have to put it in my brain and go, well, I've judged this, and I've judged this, and I've judged that, and yet they don't make linear sense. When I spread them out and go, well, this is what I believe, and I look at it and go, oh, wait, my thought over here doesn't match this thought. My thought here doesn't match this thought. Because this generation will tell you, oh, we have more information available to us than any time in history. But we're some of the people who have less information in our brains. Because Google knows everything, but we don't know much. I can Google it. Yeah, but you actually haven't wrestled that out. We talked about wrestling earlier. You haven't wrestled the information out. Going back to a biblical story, King Saul gave David his armor, but David said, I can't wear it. I haven't tried. It's not tried on me yet. I haven't mastered it yet. So we have none of this mastered, and we have all these thoughts, but we don't know what to do with them.
Let me ask you, Wes, why do you think that is? I mean, I'll be the first one to let everybody know that when I wanted to know something, even if it's extremely complex, and I had this idea in my mind. I'm like, you know what? I'd like to be an expert in that. I don't know anything about it right now. I'm going from 0, but I'd like to be 100. I may Google it.
You're a 10 to me.
Yeah, well, thanks, Wes. Like out of 100?
Out of 100, yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify. But I'll be the first to let you know, I want to go from 0 to 100 on a specific topic. I'll get the laptop out, I'll start Googling, and I'll find myself that after 5 minutes, I'm like, you know what, is there just some clip notes for this? Because I ain't got no time to do all this research. I don't want to wrestle with the issue. I just want to know everything immediately. But because I know I can't do that, I just want the clip notes, and then I can settle, because then I have something that I can talk about with my friends. Or if somebody brings it up, I have just enough information to prove somebody wrong, or to show them that I have enough knowledge to discuss and educate in an educated way. So why do you think it is that people are, in our day, we have all the information in the world, but we just don't want to actually dive into it? What's the root?
Because learning's a discipline. And disciplines and anything worthwhile takes time. One of my mentors used to always tell me, time spent sharpening the sickle is not wasted time. What we don't understand is life is we live at this breakneck speed of information, and it's impossible for us to absorb it all. And so we want to get as much as we can and shove as much in there, not realizing that we're not retaining any of it. And if we took time to simply just take one topic and learn it, then we would have that. Think about this. When you look back at the founding fathers, they spoke 7 to 8 languages. They were proficient in law. They were proficient.
You don't speak 7 to 8 languages?
No, unless you consider Eastern Kentucky one. I speak a little Spanish. I know a few words in Norwegian, but yeah, no, I don't speak all those. So, but they did this. And by the time they were in their 30s, they had law degrees. They had several degrees. And these were guys that didn't live when the internet was here. It took them 6 months to go to Europe and get back because they had to go by boat. But yet they had more information in their brains. They had more control of information. They had more use of their intellect. And yet they lived in a time that we would say, oh, they're simpletons. But they had more use of it. I mean, the Founding Fathers guys were absolutely brilliant people. And make no mistake about it, we have some people who are very, very smart. These guys would have been right up there with anybody in Mensa today. These guys were just brilliant guys, and they set us up a government that were fantastic. I know we'll get to that in a minute. But because they took time to learn it. They took time. It takes time to learn things. It's a discipline. That's why a relationship with God, there's disciplines in there. There's prayer, and there's understanding, and there's just sometimes just quieting your mind. We don't take time, and so there's no roots. If you don't take time, you can't let roots grow. You can't build anything. You can't build everything out of paper mache. Sometimes you got to dig the footer, you got to pour the concrete, and then you got to build it from scratch. You can't just come in and say, oh, we'll just throw it together, because it won't withstand. It's like when Jesus says, you don't build on the sand, you build on the rock. But building into the rock takes so much more work. But in the end, you have something that is actually worthwhile. And I think that's one of the reasons. Now, I'm going to jump back in here because there's something that happens in social media and on Facebook and stuff that we have today that feeds right into this. We live at the speed of social media, right? And we have people who post things. Ted Cruz is a monster. Bam. And then you say, why'd you say that? Well, it was social media, so I just said something. And you're like, well, why didn't you take time to say something right instead of throwing something silly up there and making accusations? Take time to... I don't do well with Facebook because I take time when someone says something. It may take me a day or two to actually to post something back, even a comment back, because I'm taking time and I want to say it correctly, because it's going to be out there for the entire public to see. This is why I hate memes. Wait, hope everyone's okay. There's a fire truck that's going by. I hate memes. And I'm saying very strongly, I hate memes. I think that they are some of the worst forms of communication because you can't show that something is logically valid in a picture with a quick quip on it. A quip and a picture do not make a logically valid statement. So every time you use a meme, you're promoting an idea that has hidden presuppositions behind it. And therefore, to understand it fully, you have to know all the presuppositions. And if there's any logical fallacies in there, then the statement is logically invalid. So most of the memes you see out there, 99.9% of the memes out there, are logical fallacies. What does that mean? That means that they don't make sense and they're incorrect. Stop forwarding them. Especially political ones. They're horrible. So there's my rant on memes.
Wes, what about ones that show a picture of a very nerdy child and it says, has a pet rock, it runs away?
Okay, I said political memes. That is actually quite funny. Yeah, so, I mean, memes are good as silly things, but when people begin to post them as rebuttals or to refute someone's statement or to refute Christianity, and they say, I'm going to bash Christianity with this meme, or I'm going to bash the conservatives and liberals with a meme, and it goes both ways. Those memes are useless because all they do is they do stir up strife because they weren't thought out, they're not logically valid, and they're meant to gouge somebody. They're meant to go at somebody and poke. That's what they're meant to do. They're meant to just antagonize. And I think they're usually done in the wrong spirit, but that meme was actually quite funny.
What about a meme that has a picture of Mr. T saying, "It's April, fools"?
I'm not the czar on memes and saying what goes and what doesn't go. I'm just giving an opinion, so you can disagree, but that actually is quite funny.
Well, on that note, what we want to do next, before we take a break, is to just throw out some neutral perspectives of what the differences are between the terms conservative and liberal. And I'm going to let Wes actually step back in and kind of go through that.
Okay, so we know what it means to be liberal. It means that you're wrong. And conservative means no. I'm just kidding. I am just kidding. We are taking a neutral stance on this because what you find out when you talk to people is you don't want to create a straw man. And what a straw man is, in regards to logical fallacy, a straw man is that you present someone's argument incorrectly, and then you defeat the incorrect argument and act as if you defeated their argument. So we want to be fair to liberals and conservatives both and say, we want to represent you the way you should be represented. So this is a definition that I found of liberals that I think encompasses a good understanding of liberals. Now, when we have Nathan on the phone here in a little bit, he can actually tell us whether this is actually good or if this is bad in his opinion. Liberals believe in government action to achieve equal opportunity and equality for all. It is their belief that it is a duty of the government to alleviate social ills and protect civil liberties and individual human rights. Believe the role of government should be to guarantee that no one is in need. Liberal policies generally emphasize the need for government to solve problems. Now, I think that's pretty fair. I don't think that's horrible one way or the other. I think that's a pretty neutral statement. Now, conservatives, on the other hand, and liberal means to liberate. Or also, you can apply something liberally is to give more than what we would, the bare necessities. To apply liberally is to give more than what you would need just on the base level. Conservative believes in personal responsibility, limited government, free markets, individual liberty, traditional American values, and a strong national defense. Believe the role of government should be to provide people the freedom necessary to pursue their own goals. Conservative policies generally emphasize empowerment of the individual to solve problems. What do you think, John? Do you think those are pretty even definitions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's discussing specifically the realm of the role of the government. I think that there are contexts and connotations with those two words that are also deal with moral issues, and so maybe you can kind of discuss some differences there as well.
The moral issues?
Yeah, the differences between the two when it comes to moral issues.
Yeah, so if I could put in one cliche, conservatism would be the old adage, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. And I believe the moral implications there, the moral implications for the liberal is that there's social justice that needs to come. That we as individuals need to be protective of one another and make sure that nobody is left behind, that we share everything, that we allow the government to oversee the broader scape of the populace, and to make sure that there's no one that falls through the cracks, that everyone is given, is not left behind or that is in need. Now what happens here, when I look at this, is in need becomes a subjective term or a relative term. Because everything that I've seen here in this liberal definition is all subjective. Alleviate social ills. You have your civil liberties, which is an objective term, but individual and human rights. I don't know what some of those rights are unless they're talking about the inalienable rights of the Constitution. But liberals believe it is morally correct that the government take the place of individual charities and responsibilities, and it's the government's responsibility to make sure that society functions and flows with charity and with help and compassion. So they are alleviating almost themselves, not entirely, but themselves from doing these things, and say, if people, I've heard this from my liberal friends, if people will not take care of the poor, if the conservatives won't do it, then the government needs to step in, and they need to take tax money from the conservatives and give it to the poor if the conservatives won't do it themselves. So there's that moral implication that in order to make sure everything is equal is to give it to the government, and this is the government's responsibility at that point. And we need to elect government that creates that environment. Now, on the conservative side, they say that the moral implication falls to us as individuals, that the individual has more rights, has more understanding of how to treat somebody with compassion than a government. Now, the thing is, in liberalism, who's government? Government or people? Do you not trust people? That's my question. That would be my question to liberal. Maybe Nathan, when he gets on, can answer that. Do liberals not trust people? But yet government's made up of people. So in conservatism, the moral implication is we each have individual responsibility to do something with compassion, to make sure our fellow man is taken care of. But it should be done on an individual basis, not on a basis of government, because in the conservatism, you can actually make immediate impact to someone in need. I can just give money to somebody, I can take care of somebody, and they are immediately taken care of. Whereas in the liberalism, it has to go through a bureaucrat, it has to go through overhead, it has to go through programs which are open to waste, abuse, and fraud. Where I just give money to somebody, and it's immediately there. Now that's oversimplification, and I may have been misrepresenting them there, but that's just sort of a high overview of that morality there.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way of describing it. And I think that's a good question for a conservative from a liberal perspective is, are people actually trustworthy? I mean, you said that, from a conservative perspective, kind of countering, but I know a lot of people that I don't trust. You know what I'm saying? And so if it really should be in the hands of the people, then that can also be a very scary thought. When I was asking my original question, I guess I was talking more about some of the moral issues, specifically abortion, gay marriage, gay rights, things like that, that we would define as more of the ethical issues. Would you say that it's correct to summarize the liberal perspective as progressive, meaning that they are not as concerned about where we came from as they are with what the best is for the future?
Right. I would actually say not entirely. And the reason why I said it is because progressivism is not beholden to any political view at all. There are progressive conservatives. If you look at some of the views of Chris Christie and Mike Huckabee and some of these guys that we would look up to, even John McCain and these guys, they're big government guys. Now, progressivism just basically means big government taking care of things. We give it into the hands of government to take care of our welfare. And so there are actually Republicans and there are actually conservatives who are progressive in that area. Donald Trump is pro-choice. He calls himself conservative. He is pro-choice. That is a progressive idea. And so liberalism and conservatism are not beholden to specifically one aspect of progressivism to the other. You can be a progressive in anything, but to your point, progressivism is rooted in postmodern thought. And that it's rooted in something that says the future is always better, what is behind us is bad, and we need to move forward with this. But the problem is most of these progressive ideas are rooted in something that's moral relativism, where morals are left up to the individual to create the morals. So what they say, a progressive would say that abortion in Roe v. Wade, that was a moral victory, a moral reformation. But it's self-refuting because if morals are left up to individuals and we overturn it, it can't be a moral reformation. It's simply lateral. It's a lateral move. It just means it's different. Because Moral relativism says nothing is good or bad, it's just different.
So we've got about 3 more minutes before the break, and I've got one more clarifying question that I think is really important to ask. And that is, what is the relationship between the terms liberal, conservative, and Republican and Democrat?
Say that again?
What is the relationship between the terms liberal, conservative, and then Republican and Democrat? Because I feel like they're often associated with each
Right.
other, but they're technically different terms, different definitions, and so I wanted to see.
Yes. So liberalism is usually connected to the Democratic side because most Democrats have liberal views. But liberalism is broken into two things. It's social and economics. Socially liberal and economically or fiscally liberal. And so what you find is inside of liberalism, most Democrats lean socially and fiscally towards a progressive ideology. They want big government to be there. They want old things to go away. They believe the Constitution is a living, breathing document, not something that is hard and fast and transcendent or objective. So therefore they can change it. So Democrats go more towards those ideas, and Republicans who want to keep traditional values automatically, or not automatically, but by virtue of that, gravitate towards conservatism, which conservatism means to conserve. And we conserve traditional values, we conserve the Constitution as a document that has original intent. And so based on those two things, it's a natural caveat or a natural deviation for them to go left or right. So a Republican would say, I'm a conservative, and 90% of the time that's going to be correct. Most Republicans would not say that they're liberal, even though they might have a few liberal ideas. So that's where the divide is their outlook on what the Constitution is and how it should be applied today, and that's usually where the split happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. So would you say that the difference between the two terms, liberal and conservative, is on specific issues and topics, or is it a difference in overall way of thinking?
It's a difference in overall way of thinking. It is a complete, that's why it's hard for a conservative to be a progressive in a sense, because conservatism, we believe that the Constitution had an original intent and we shouldn't be changing it, whereas liberalism would say the Constitution is a document that's flexible and malleable and we can change it to whatever our 21st century interpretation is. It's old, it's antiquated. So and conservatism is actually rooted in objective thought, and liberalism is rooted in postmodern thought. So I would say that is it'd be very hard to hold conservatism with liberal ideas.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Well, this wraps up the first segment, and we're really grateful that you're listening in and that you're here with us live. And so we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back, and then we're going to have someone who's going to be interviewed by us, who's going to be representing the liberal view.
All right, guys, stick around. Be back in a minute.